Let's bring in Matthew Brodsky. He's a senior fellow at the Security Studies Group. And Matthew, the recapturing of Deraa, is that just a symbolic blow to the opposition, or is this basically the end for them?
It's very significant, obviously, as you had mentioned, that this is the place that the entire events got started back in 2011. But you could really see that the civil war aspect, the overthrow of Assad, that pretty much ended with the fall of Aleppo in December of 2016, with the frozen de-escalation zones that were agreed to and violated, of course, by Russia and Syria from last year. We knew that after Damascus was retaken, it was going to be southwest, and then it will be time for looking at Idlib and eastern Syria as Assad goes to retake the rest of the country. It's pretty much predictable. It's obviously unfortunate if you wanted to see Assad overthrown. Clearly, he's a war criminal and should face justice.
Matthew, the displaced people, do they have reason to be as fearful as that soundbite we just played of that man who is worried about what may happen to him and perhaps his friends and family if he returns back and has to deal face-to-face with the Syrian army in his community?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it depends on a case-by-case basis in each of the cities what militia you joined. But, I mean, as we get back to what, of course, would be a business as usual in Syria, of course there's going to be retribution. There's been, almost a decade of war. So Assad, if he controls, say, all of the reconstruction aid that will eventually come in, he's not going to give that away to people that were against him. And clearly he's going to be quite vindictive with that, and he was vindictive to begin with before this, so he'll be settling scores, I'm sure. And it depends on what side you were. Currently, where we're at is he's been doing the whole, if you surrender as a rebel, then we ship you off, basically to the next phase. I mean, this is how you look at it. It was, last year you saw around the Lebanese border, so he shipped all those people to Dar el-Zor in the east, and eventually he's going to end up retaking pretty much all of these places. The big question mark is, what is the United States going to do in the long term? Is it going to stay in northeastern Syria, which of course is on top of the oil? That would give it a say in a lot of the reconstruction efforts. And what it's going to do about Iran, that makes a big difference. Otherwise, it's almost a very painful, destructive autopilot we're on.
Right, and a lot of questions about what the U.S. is going to do. But when it comes to Israel, you called Assad a war criminal, but Bibi Netanyahu is now saying he has no problem with Assad staying in power. Can you explain Netanyahu's reasoning for that?
Well, he's just dealing with reality as it is. I mean, once Russia came in September 2015, it basically made sure that Assad was going to stay in power. That's what Russia wanted to do. So the question mark now is Iran. That is what Israel's largest fear, its biggest strategic threat is in Syria, is Iran. So it's made the decision to speak repeatedly to Putin to say, look, if you want to hang on to Assad, that's fine. We're not going to touch him unless he launches missiles and does things to us. Then we'll strike back. We're only concerned with going after Iran. So that's been the Israeli approach. Now, the only thing that could balance out this Russian position, basically, is the United States getting involved and having a position that balances out what Russia's doing. Israel simply can't do that with its diplomatic weight unless it wants to take on everyone. Greater superpowers than
which
itself.
It doesn't seem it could. Yeah. Well, the U.S. doesn't sound like they're stepping in anytime soon, so I'm sure we're going to continue having this conversation. Matthew Brodsky, thanks for coming on our show as always.
Sure.